Hi, my name is Rick Hall. I'm married. I'm 59 years old. I have 2 beautiful daughters, and I have 4 beautiful grandchildren. I have same-sex attraction, and I would like to share my story with you. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, I started to notice that something was different about me. I remember watching on our black and white TV Tarzan, and I was very drawn to Tarzan, to his muscles, to his physique, and I started watching more often. And then I started to question myself. What kind of boy gets excited about watching a man with his shirt off? And so I started this self-talk of telling myself, you must be sick in the head. Something's wrong with you. You must be broken. In school, in my younger days, I was bullied a lot. I don't know exactly why. I'd be walking down the street and I'd be beat up. At school, I'd be punched and kicked and made fun of and called names. After high school, I was challenged by a Sunday school teacher. If you don't have a testimony of the gospel, then you need to get one by yourself. My parents didn't go to church. So I prayed and I read, and I received a very strong testimony of the gospel. I was excited to be able to share the gospel with others. My giving, sensitive nature wanted to go out and share the gospel with others. So I started to prepare for a mission. And I would read, and I took missionary preparation classes. And I received a call to the Colorado-Denver mission. And one day I was walking down the hall with my companion in the mission home, and 2 elders jumped out from around the corner in front of me and waved their limp wrists at me and said, "Say that, fella." And I was quite taken back. I looked at my missionary companion, looking for his reaction. And he just shrugged his shoulders like, what do you expect? I didn't realize that I acted feminine. I didn't realize I acted gay, for lack of a better word. When I came home from my mission, I followed the advice of my mission president. And that was to strive to continue to live the rules of the mission and to have a personal PPI with myself every week. Things went along really well until about 2 years later, I was obsessively drawn to a young man. I didn't understand it. I didn't know where it came from, but it was all I could think of. And I made preparations to have inappropriate relations with this man, this young man. As I prepared to do so, the Spirit, through my garment, screamed at me and said, "Stop it. Stop it now." And so I did. I stopped then, and I went home that evening and called my bishop to make an appointment. And within the week, I was sitting in front of my bishop, who was over a singles ward at BYU, confessing to him the deep desires I had within my heart. I found out later that my wife had received a prompting by the Spirit months earlier that she would marry me before the year was out, even though she didn't know my name. I think she was a little disappointed that I wasn't better looking, but again, the Spirit had led her to me and me to her. We were engaged in 3 weeks and married 3 months later in the Salt Lake Temple. I was very frustrated that same-sex attraction feelings continued to plague me, enter my mind, and I continued to run from it. And what I would do is I would work 2 and 3 jobs at a time and remodel our house and put in yards and do my best to serve in my church jobs, in the elders' quorum presidencies, bishopric, high priest group leadership. And I was a temple veil worker once a week for about 2 years. I loved being in the temple. So life went on as it does. And shortly after I turned 56, for the first time in my life, I got involved in pornography, gay pornography. And I was hooked right away. I was addicted. And viewing pornography changed me. I started to become withdrawn, angry, and all I was concerned about was getting my next fix. I got on the computer, Men Seeking Men, and I saw a post, someone looking for someone nice, and I'll call him Mark. And I emailed Mark, and Mark was excited to meet. I made arrangements for Mark to meet me at my house. I had the house all day to myself. And Mark arrived, and I was immediately drawn to his tender, lonely spirit. And we talked for hours. And I decided if I was going to engage in homosexual activity, Mark was the right person for me. So I launched myself into a double life over the next 2 months. I could lie about anything. Nobody at home suspected. Mark and I met many times, and I was enthralled with the acceptance and love and touch of another man. So the next day, Valentine's Day, I did something I hadn't done in some time. I got on my knees, and instead of telling God what he needed to do for me, I asked him, what would he have me do? So the next morning, I determined that I would move forward, that I had to make things right. I saw a long, steep road ahead of me, and it seemed almost impossible. I knew I had much work to do. So over the next 2 weeks, I prepared to tell my wife yet another deep, dark secret. Eventually, I met with her and told her my secret. And I told my bishop, and I told my stake president. So a month later, with my wonderful wife at my side, a church disciplinary court was held, and I was excommunicated. And as promised, I felt the love of the Savior, and I felt the love of the 16 men in that room. After more than a year of total sobriety, I was rebaptized back into the church. It was a day I will not soon forget. It was a wonderful experience, surrounded by many people who supported me and feeling the spirit of my Savior. As I continued my journey, I went to a workshop for men with SSA, and I continued counseling, and I went to a support group, and I started to experience great healing, and I loved the connection with other men. I learned how to meet my overwhelming need for male connection in healthy ways. And I had wonderful friends, and I was happy, and I loved this new life of being me